Sarah Martinez clutches the termination letter, her hands trembling as corporate security escorts her through the warehouse she's called home for 3 years. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead like angry wasps, casting harsh shadows on faces that won't meet her eyes. Her supervisor, Janet, stands by the loading dock with arms crossed, shaking her head as if Sarah has committed some unforgivable sin. The smell of diesel fuel and cardboard dust fills her nostrils, familiar scents that now carry the bitter taste of betrayal. "Policy is policy," Janet had said, her voice cold as winter concrete. "You stopped unauthorized. Again." The word hangs in the recycled air, heavy with accusation. Sarah's coworkers still won't look at her. Tommy from Dock 3 studies his clipboard with sudden intensity. Maria pretends to organize packages that are already perfectly arranged, and even old Pete, who usually jokes about everything, finds something fascinating about his shoelaces. The cardboard box cuts into her palms as she stumbles toward the exit. 3 years of perfect delivery records. 3 years of overtime shifts to pay her brother's tuition. 3 years of arriving early, staying late, covering shifts for sick colleagues, and maintaining the highest customer satisfaction ratings in the district. All of it reduced to this moment of corporate betrayal, this walk of shame past colleagues who know she did the right thing but can't risk their own jobs to acknowledge it. The automatic doors wheeze open, releasing her into the harsh morning sunlight. News vans line the parking lot like vultures, their satellite dishes pointed skyward, reporters checking their makeup in car mirrors. The viral video has made her famous in the worst possible way, a hero to the public, a liability to her employer. Sarah clutches her personal belongings tighter and walks toward her car, each step carrying her further from financial security and closer to an uncertain future that terrifies her more than the highway crash that started it all. The alarm screams at 5:15 a.m., just like every Tuesday for the past 1,247 days. Sarah Martinez counts these mornings because routine is the only thing that makes the relentless pressure bearable. Each day brings her closer to David's graduation, closer to the moment when she can finally breathe without calculating the cost of every grocery item, every unexpected expense, every small luxury that normal people take for granted. Her bare feet hit the cold linoleum of her studio apartment, muscles protesting the early hour. The space measures exactly 450 square feet. She knows because she's paced it during sleepless nights, measuring worry in footsteps. Coffee, black. 2 sugars. The ritual grounds her as steam rises from the chipped ceramic mug her brother gave her last Christmas, decorated with faded letters that spell "World's Best Sister." She pulls on the brown uniform that smells perpetually of diesel and cardboard, checking her reflection in the bathroom mirror that's cracked in the upper right corner. 26 years old, but her eyes carry the weight of responsibility that ages a person faster than time. Her mother's eyes, people always said, strong eyes that never showed fear, even when cancer was eating her alive and the medical bills were drowning the family in debt. The mirror reflects more than just her appearance. It shows the life she's built from necessity rather than choice. Community college dropout at 19 when mom got sick. Full-time caregiver until the end. Then guardian to a grief-stricken 15-year-old brother who needed stability more than she needed her own dreams. Sarah brushes her teeth with practiced efficiency, mind already shifting to the day ahead. Route 247 covers 37 square miles of suburban Atlanta, winding through neighborhoods that range from modest middle class to borderline affluent. She knows every house, every dog, every customer who tips, and everyone who complains. The familiarity comforts her. In a world where so much feels uncertain, her delivery route provides structure and purpose. The warehouse at Transglobal Logistics hums with pre-dawn energy when she arrives at 5:47 a.m. Forklifts beep their warnings as drivers load packages into identical brown vans. The loading dock stretches the length of a football field, filled with conveyor belts that never stop moving, sorting packages by zip code with mechanical precision. The scent of motor oil mingles with burnt coffee from the break room vending machine, creating an industrial perfume that's oddly comforting in its consistency. "Martinez." Janet's voice cuts through the mechanical symphony like a blade. Sarah's supervisor approaches with the purposeful stride of someone who enjoys wielding authority. Janet Kowalski, 15 years with the company, divorced twice, bitter about life, and determined to share that bitterness with anyone unlucky enough to work under her supervision. "New policy reminder," Janet announces, loud enough for nearby drivers to hear. "No unauthorized stops, period. Liability says one more incident and we're looking at termination. I don't care if someone's house is on fire. You call 911 and keep driving." The policy stems from Tommy Henderson's recent mishap. He'd stopped to help an elderly woman change a tire, thrown out his back lifting the spare, and filed a workers' comp claim for $37,000. Corporate response was swift and merciless, a blanket prohibition on any activity not directly related to package delivery. Good Samaritan impulses were now grounds for immediate termination. Sarah nods, throat tight. She understands the business logic, even if it feels fundamentally wrong. Companies exist to make profit, not to encourage employees to risk injury helping strangers. But understanding doesn't make the policy feel any less cruel. Her van, number 247, sits loaded with 127 packages. She's driven this particular vehicle for 18 months, knows its quirks and limitations. The radio crackles when it rains, the passenger door sticks in humid weather, and the engine makes a whistling sound above 50 miles per hour. But it's reliable transportation that pays her bills and keeps David in college. The familiar weight of responsibility settles on her shoulders as she climbs behind the wheel. Today's manifest includes a birthday delivery for Mrs. Patterson on Elm Street, business documents for the law firm on Oak Avenue, and a package marked "Fragile" for the antique shop downtown. Each delivery represents someone's day getting a little better, a small but meaningful contribution to the world. Radio static crackles to life as dispatch coordinates the morning ballet of deliveries across the city. Sarah adjusts her rearview mirror, checks her seatbelt, and starts the engine. The dashboard clock reads 6:03 a.m. as she pulls onto Meridian Street, watching the city wake up through her windshield. Traffic is light at this hour, mostly other service workers beginning their shifts. A garbage truck rumbles past, its hydraulic whine echoing off empty storefronts. Streetlights flicker off as dawn approaches, automated systems responding to sensors that measure the growing light. Sarah's phone sits in the cup holder, displaying a photo of her and David at his college orientation. He's grown 6 inches since high school, his face losing the soft roundness of adolescence and gaining the angular features of their father. The resemblance sometimes catches her off guard, a reminder of the man who left when the medical bills started piling up. The van's heating system blows warm air that carries the faint scent of the vanilla air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror. Sarah settles into the rhythm of morning traffic, mind already planning her route for maximum efficiency. First stop, the residential area near the university, where young families receive packages from grandparents and online retailers. She passes a billboard advertising a luxury car dealership, its promise of affordable luxury mocking her from 30 feet above the road. Sarah's Honda Civic has 147,000 miles and a transmission that shudders at red lights, but it's paid for and mostly reliable. Luxury means having enough money in checking to cover unexpected expenses, not driving something that depreciates faster than she can make payments. The radio plays classic rock at low volume, providing background noise without distraction. Sarah hums along to songs she's heard 1,000 times, finding comfort in familiar melodies. Music was one of the first casualties of financial stress. No money for concerts, streaming services, or even new albums. Now she makes do with whatever the radio provides, grateful for small pleasures that don't cost anything. Morning light filters through autumn leaves as Sarah navigates the suburban maze she knows by heart. The trees are beginning their seasonal transformation, green giving way to gold and crimson in a process that happens gradually, then all at once. October in Georgia brings crisp mornings and warm afternoons, the kind of weather that makes people fall in love with the South. Her first stop is 1247 Oak Street, where Mrs. Rodriguez waits on her front porch with a steaming cup of coffee and a $5 tip she can't afford to give but insists on offering anyway. Maria Rodriguez is 68, a widow who worked as a seamstress for 40 years before arthritis forced her retirement. Her small house sits on a corner lot surrounded by rose bushes she tends with religious devotion. "Morning, Sarah. How's your brother doing in school?" "Getting ready to graduate in December," Sarah replies, accepting the package signature on her electronic tablet. Mrs. Rodriguez asks the same question every week, and Sarah never minds answering. Human connection is rare in a job that involves more interaction with doorsteps than people. "You tell him I'm proud of him. Takes a special kind of person to become an engineer." The genuine warmth in Mrs. Rodriguez's voice creates a momentary glow that carries Sarah through the next 3 stops. Third house on Elm Street needs packages left behind the flower pots. The homeowner works nights and sleeps during delivery hours. The package today contains art supplies from an online retailer, probably for the teenage daughter who Sarah occasionally sees walking to school with paint-stained fingers. Next stop, the law firm of Hendricks and Associates, where packages always go to the receptionist named Brenda, who treats delivery drivers like invisible servants. Today, she barely looks up from her computer screen, accepting the certified documents with a grunt of acknowledgement. The marble lobby smells like expensive cologne and fresh flowers, a different world from the warehouse where Sarah's day began. She waves to Mrs. Chen at Chen's Flower Shop, the elderly woman already arranging chrysanthemums in the window display. Mrs. Chen always waves back with genuine enthusiasm, her wrinkled face breaking into a smile that transcends language barriers. The flower shop has been in the same location for 23 years, according to the faded sign above the door. The fragrance of fresh blooms drifts through the van's open window, momentarily masking the diesel fumes from the truck idling at the red light. "Package for Mike's Auto Parts," she calls out, tossing the box with practiced precision. Mike catches it one-handed, grinning with the ease of someone who's performed this routine hundreds of times. "You ever miss, Sarah?" "Not in 3 years." "What's your secret?" "Same as yours. Practice and paying attention." Mike's shop occupies the ground floor of a converted warehouse, its bays filled with vehicles in various states of repair. The sound of pneumatic tools and classic rock music drifts from the open garage doors, mixing with the smell of motor oil and metal shavings. Mike employs 6 mechanics, all of whom know Sarah by name and treat her with the respect accorded to reliable people who do their jobs well. Her phone buzzes against the dashboard as she climbs back into the van. A text from David. "Got the scholarship interview. Thanks for making this possible, sis. Love you." Sarah's chest swells with pride that threatens to overflow into tears. David has been working toward this moment for 3.5 years, maintaining a 3.8 GPA while working part-time at the campus bookstore. The scholarship would cover his final semester's tuition and fees, freeing him from the crushing debt that has defined Sarah's adult life. The van's radio crackles with afternoon dispatch updates as she heads toward the highway interchange for her final cluster of deliveries. Traffic is building toward the evening rush, commuters beginning their migration from office buildings to suburban neighborhoods. Sarah merges into the flow of vehicles, thinking about David's graduation ceremony in December. She pictures him walking across the stage in cap and gown, diploma in hand, their mother's dream finally realized 7 years after her death. Maria Martinez had worked double shifts as a hospital custodian to save money for her children's education, sacrificing her health and happiness for their future opportunities. Cancer took her before she could see the results of her sacrifice, but Sarah carries that dream forward like a sacred trust. The interstate stretches ahead, 6 lanes of controlled chaos carrying thousands of people toward home. Luxury cars mix with work trucks, minivans filled with soccer equipment, and motorcycles weaving between lanes with careless confidence. Everyone has somewhere to be, someone waiting for them, responsibilities that define their daily existence. Sarah checks her dashboard clock. 4:40 p.m. 7 more deliveries. Then she can head home to her studio apartment and the stack of bills waiting on her kitchen table. Rent is due in 12 days, David's tuition payment in 6 weeks, and her car insurance renewal next month. The mathematics of survival never stop. Equations that must balance or everything falls apart. A red sports car passes her on the left, its driver talking animatedly on a phone that probably costs more than Sarah makes in a week. She wonders what it would feel like to buy something without checking her account balance first, to make decisions based on desire rather than necessity. The daydream doesn't last long. Reality has a way of reasserting itself, reminding her that wishes don't pay bills or change circumstances. But David's text message glows on her phone screen, a reminder that sacrifice can create opportunities, that today's struggles might become tomorrow's foundation. Who could have known that in 7 minutes everything would change? The semi-truck appears over the hill like a wounded beast, its 40-foot trailer swinging wide across 3 lanes of evening traffic. Sarah crests the rise at exactly 4:47 p.m. and watches physics take control of a situation that human reflexes can't correct. The truck's cab jackknifes to the left while its trailer continues forward, creating a massive obstacle that spans the entire width of the highway. Cars approaching at 65 miles per hour have perhaps 3 seconds to react to an impossible situation. Some drivers swerve toward the shoulder. Others slam their brakes and hope for the best. Metal screams against asphalt, glass explodes, smoke, chaos. The jackknife truck triggers a domino effect of collisions that unfolds with terrible precision. A white sedan clips the trailer's rear corner and spins into the median. A pickup truck rear-ends the sedan, its front end crumpling like aluminum foil. A minivan carrying a family swerves to avoid the pickup and rolls twice before coming to rest on its side. Sarah's EMT training kicks in before her brain can fully process the scene. 5 years since her certification expired, she'd let it lapse when the renewal fees became unaffordable. But muscle memory doesn't forget how to assess trauma, prioritize casualties, or maintain composure when chaos threatens to overwhelm rational thought. She pulls onto the shoulder, emergency flashers painting the growing dusk in amber urgency. The van's engine ticks as it cools, a mundane sound that seems obscene against the backdrop of human suffering. Her company phone shows 3 missed calls from dispatch, but the sounds drowning out the electronic beeping demand immediate attention. Screaming, crying, someone calling for help in Spanish, the hiss of ruptured radiators mixing steam with smoke from burning oil, the metallic smell of blood competing with the acrid scent of scattered gasoline. A child's voice cuts through the chaos like a knife. "Mommy! Mommy, wake up!" Sarah's hands shake as she dials 911, muscle memory navigating the phone's interface while her eyes scan the devastation. The operator's voice sounds strained, professional composure cracking under pressure from multiple simultaneous emergencies. 911, what's your emergency? Multi-vehicle accident on Interstate 85 northbound. Mile marker 247. At least 12 cars involved. Multiple injuries. I can see people trapped in vehicles. Units are being dispatched. What's your location exactly? I'm a former EMT. I can provide assistance until help arrives. Ma'am, all units are responding to a chemical spill on Highway 74. Estimated response time to your location is 35 minutes minimum. 35 minutes. A lifetime when people are bleeding, when airways might be compromised, when the difference between life and death can be measured in seconds rather than minutes. Sarah stares at the devastation, calculating resources against need. Her delivery van contains a well-stocked first aid kit. She'd spent her own money on supplies beyond what the company provided, knowing that preparedness could mean the difference between helping effectively and watching helplessly. The white sedan closest to her position has a woman slumped over the steering wheel, blood streaming from a head wound. The child in the back seat, maybe 6 years old, struggles against her car seat restraints, trying to reach her unconscious mother. A man in the pickup truck clutches his left arm, red seeping between his fingers in a pattern that suggests arterial bleeding. Janet's warning echoes in Sarah's memory. No unauthorized stops. Period. Liability says one more incident and we're looking at termination. But conscience has a louder voice than policy, and training overrides fear of consequences. Sarah grabs her first aid kit and high-visibility vest, transforming from delivery driver to emergency responder in the space of a heartbeat. The moment she steps onto the asphalt, she crosses a line that will change everything. Sarah's boots crunch on scattered safety glass as she approaches the white sedan, adrenaline sharpening every sense until the world takes on hyper-realistic clarity. The sound of her footsteps, the smell of leaking fluids, the sight of blood on broken glass, everything registers with the intensity of a photograph being burned into memory. The woman in the driver's seat is conscious but dazed. A 3-inch gash above her left temple, bleeding with the steady flow that indicates a scalp wound. Head injuries bleed dramatically but aren't always life-threatening. Still, the amount of blood coating the woman's face and shirt suggests she's been unconscious for at least several minutes. "Ma'am, can you hear me? My name is Sarah. I'm here to help." The woman's eyes focus slowly, pupils equal and reactive, a good sign that rules out immediate traumatic brain injury. "My daughter," she whispers, her voice thick with confusion. "Is she okay?" "In the back seat." Sarah checks the child first, running practiced hands over small arms and legs, checking for obvious injuries. The little girl is bruised and frightened, but alert, properly secured in a car seat that probably saved her life. No visible bleeding, no signs of serious trauma. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emma. Is my mommy going to be okay?" "Your mommy is going to be fine. I'm a doctor and I'm going to help her." The lie comes easily. Sometimes healing begins with hope, and a 6-year-old doesn't need to know about EMT certifications or insurance liability. Sarah applies direct pressure to the woman's head wound using gauze from her kit. The bleeding slows but doesn't stop completely. Probable concussion, possible cervical spine injury, but stable for now. She needs to move to more critical casualties. The pickup truck driver is losing blood faster. Sarah tears open gauze packages with her teeth, applying pressure to what looks like a severed radial artery. The man's face is pale, his breathing rapid and shallow, classic signs of hemorrhagic shock. "Keep this pressed tight against your arm," she instructs, guiding his right hand to maintain pressure on the wound. "Don't let go, no matter what. Help is coming." "How long?" he gasps. "Soon?" Another necessary lie. 30 minutes might as well be 30 hours when you're bleeding out on a highway. The overturned minivan presents the most complex challenge. A family of 4, parents in their 40s, 2 teenage children, trapped in a vehicle that's leaking gasoline from a punctured tank. The father appears unconscious, blood running from his nose. The mother is awake but complaining of severe chest pain. The teenagers are crying but responsive. Sarah's EMT training provides a framework for triage. Treat the most serious injuries first, but don't spend so much time on one patient that others die waiting. The unconscious father takes priority: airway, breathing, circulation, the sacred ABCs of emergency medicine. She checks his pulse, weak but present. His airway is clear, breathing shallow but regular. No obvious signs of spinal injury, but moving him could be catastrophic if there's cervical damage. She decides to leave him in position and monitor while treating other casualties. A teenager trapped in an overturned Honda hyperventilates in the grip of panic that threatens to become something worse. Sarah kneels beside the shattered window, making eye contact with the boy whose face is streaked with tears and dirt. "Hey, look at me. What's your name?" "Jason, I can't breathe." "Yes, you can. You're talking to me, which means you're breathing. Let's slow it down together. In through your nose, hold it out through your mouth." She breathes with him, demonstrating the rhythm until his panic subsides into manageable fear. Panic kills more accident victims than injuries. People literally frighten themselves to death when adrenaline overwhelms rational thought. An elderly man sits on the asphalt beside his crumpled sedan, clutching his chest with the gray pallor of someone experiencing cardiac distress. Sarah checks his pulse, irregular, thready, and positions him to optimize blood flow to his brain. Possible heart attack triggered by the stress of the accident. Her uniform soaks with blood and motor oil as she moves between vehicles, triaging injuries with skills she'd thought forgotten. Every decision carries weight. Which patient to treat first, how to allocate limited supplies, when to risk moving someone who might have spinal injuries. Other motorists stand at safe distances, phones raised, recording. The video that will destroy her career is already uploading to social media platforms, spreading at the speed of outrage and inspiration. #DeliveryDriverHero begins trending on Twitter while Sarah works to save lives. 23 minutes after the first collision, sirens finally wail in the distance. Paramedics swarm the scene with professional efficiency, their equipment and training far superior to Sarah's improvised emergency care. She steps back as real medical professionals take over, her role shifting from primary responder to auxiliary support. The lead EMT, a woman Sarah's age with kind eyes and competent hands, surveys the stabilized patients with obvious approval. "You did excellent work here," she says, while checking the pickup truck driver's bandaged arm. "This arterial bleed would have been fatal in another 10 minutes. And the kid in the Honda. Panic can kill as surely as trauma. You probably saved 4 lives today, maybe 5. Sarah nods, suddenly exhausted as adrenaline fades and the magnitude of what just happened begins to register. Her phone shows 17 missed calls from dispatch, each one representing another step toward the unemployment line. But looking at the ambulances loading patients who will survive because she chose to stop, Sarah knows she'd make the same choice again. Some decisions transcend policy, even when the consequences threaten everything you've worked to build. The last ambulance pulls away at 5:43 p.m., carrying the elderly man with chest pains to Grady Hospital's cardiac unit. Sarah collects her blood-stained first aid supplies and walks back to her van, where 3 more packages wait for delivery. The normal world resumes its rotation, indifferent to the drama that just unfolded on 6 lanes of asphalt. Her phone rings as she climbs behind the wheel. Janet's name appears on the screen like a curse word. "Martinez, where the hell are you? You've got 3 missed deliveries, and corporate is asking questions." "There was an accident, multiple casualties. I stopped to help." Silence on the other end. Then, "Did you just say you stopped?" "People were dying, Janet. I had to—" "Report to my office first thing tomorrow morning. Bring your uniform." The line goes dead. Sarah stares at her phone, watching the viral video notifications multiply on her lock screen. 2.3 million views and climbing. Her face is clearly visible in several shots, her brown uniform identifying her employer. By tomorrow morning, Transglobal Logistics will be fielding calls from reporters wanting to interview the delivery driver hero. But heroes don't always get happy endings. Sometimes they just get fired. Wednesday morning arrives with the cruel indifference of routine, but routine is exactly what Sarah has lost. Instead of loading packages at 5:47 a.m., she sits in her kitchen at 7:30, watching coffee grow cold while her phone buzzes with call after call from numbers she doesn't recognize. The viral video has exploded overnight. #Delivery Driver Hero trends worldwide with 4.7 million views across multiple platforms. Someone identified her as Sarah Martinez, employee of Transglobal Logistics, and now reporters want interviews, talk shows want appearances, and internet strangers want to either canonize or vilify her for making a choice that should have been universally praised. The comments range from inspiring to infuriating. This is what real heroism looks like. God bless this woman. She broke company policy and endangered herself. What if she'd been injured? Who pays for that? Give her a medal and a raise. We need more people like this. Typical bleeding heart liberal putting feelings over rules. Rules exist for a reason. Sarah closes the browser, unable to process the polarized reactions to what felt like an obvious moral choice. She saved lives. People are arguing about whether that was the right thing to do. The world has apparently become too complicated for simple human decency. Janet doesn't meet her eyes when security escorts Sarah to Human Resources at 9:15 a.m. The walk through the warehouse feels like a perp walk, her former colleagues suddenly finding urgent tasks that require their complete attention. The building that once felt like a second home now treats her like a contaminant to be removed as quickly as possible. The HR director, a thin man named Peterson, with the personality of wet cardboard, slides the termination paperwork across his desk like he's handling something toxic. His office smells like stale coffee and industrial carpet cleaner, furnished with the kind of generic furniture that screams corporate cost-cutting. Violation of company policy regarding unauthorized stops, he reads in a monotone voice that suggests he's performed this ritual many times before. Creates liability exposure for Transglobal Logistics in the event of employee injury during non-work-related activities. I saved people's lives. You violated clearly stated policy that was explained to you yesterday morning. The decision is final. Peterson's face shows no emotion, no recognition that they're discussing human lives rather than shipping schedules. Sarah realizes this is what happens when corporate structures grow so complex that individual conscience becomes a liability to be eliminated rather than a virtue to be celebrated. What about my 3 years of perfect reviews, my safety record, my customer satisfaction scores? All irrelevant in light of this policy violation. You'll receive your final paycheck within 7 business days, minus the cost of uniforms and equipment that must be returned. Sarah's hands tremble as she signs the papers, her signature authorizing the end of the only stable income she's known since her mother's death. 3 years of arriving early, staying late, covering shifts for sick colleagues, and maintaining the highest delivery ratings in the district. All of it reduced to this single act of conscience that corporate America cannot tolerate. The irony tastes bitter. Helping people is exactly what gets you fired from a company that plasters community service slogans on every vehicle in their fleet. Security follows her to her locker, watching as she empties 3 years of accumulated belongings into a cardboard box. Coffee mug, spare uniform, the motivational calendar David gave her for Christmas. Personal items that transformed anonymous workspace into something that felt like home. Her coworkers avoid eye contact, probably relieved it's not them walking this path of corporate exile. Tommy from Dock 3 finally looks up as she passes, mouthing, "I'm sorry," with genuine regret. He knows better than most how arbitrary these decisions can be, how quickly loyalty and dedication become irrelevant when policy violations occur. Outside, news vans line the parking lot like vultures circling roadkill. Reporters thrust microphones toward her face as she navigates toward her car, their questions overlapping into white noise. How do you feel about being fired for saving lives? Will you sue Transglobal for wrongful termination? Do you regret your decision to stop and help? The crowd presses closer, cameras capturing her emotional state for evening news broadcasts. Sarah stops beside her Honda, keys shaking in her hand, suddenly aware that her response will be replayed thousands of times. One voice cuts through the chaos. "Would you do it again?" Sarah looks directly into the camera, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "Yes, I would do it again." The crowd erupts with follow-up questions, but she's already climbing into her car, cardboard box balanced on the passenger seat. Her phone rings constantly during the drive home. Reporters, friends, strangers who somehow got her number. She turns it off, needing silence to process what just happened. The studio apartment feels smaller when she arrives at 11:30 a.m., when she should be making deliveries to familiar faces on her established route. The walls seem to press inward, reflecting her suddenly compressed future back at her in miniature proportions. Sarah's kitchen table becomes mission control for unemployment, its surface covered with paperwork that represents the mathematics of survival. Application forms, benefit calculations, job listings printed from library computers, the bureaucratic debris of a life suddenly stripped of its primary support structure. Checking account balance, $347.82. The number glows accusingly from her bank's mobile app, unchanged since yesterday, but somehow more threatening now that it represents her total liquid assets rather than just spending money until the next paycheck. Rent due in 12 days, $1,200. The lease agreement allows a 5-day grace period before late fees kick in. But landlords don't typically accept explanations about moral choices and viral videos instead of cash. David's final semester tuition, $3,200, due in 6 weeks. The scholarship interview he mentioned could cover this cost, but scholarships aren't guaranteed. If he doesn't get it, Sarah needs to find the money or watch her brother's college career end 3 months before graduation. Car insurance, $127, due next week. Liability only, but mandatory for legal driving. Without transportation, finding work becomes exponentially more difficult in a city built for automobiles. Cell phone, $89 monthly. Essential for job hunting and staying connected, but a luxury she might not be able to afford much longer. The mathematics don't lie. Even if she finds another job immediately, unlikely given her sudden notoriety, she'll start at entry-level wages in an economy that doesn't value experience or loyalty. Fast food, retail, anything that pays minimum wage and doesn't require references from employers who might describe her as a policy violator. Sarah opens her laptop and scrolls through job listings with growing desperation. Warehouse worker, $12 an hour. Retail associate, $11.50. Restaurant server, $8, plus tips that depend on customer generosity. None of them pay enough to cover both rent and David's tuition, the two non-negotiable expenses that define her financial reality. Her neighbor's television bleeds through the thin walls, some daytime talk show discussing the viral video that destroyed her career. Sarah catches fragments of commentary, reckless endangerment of her own safety, heroic actions that saved multiple lives, clear violation of company policy, moral courage in the face of institutional indifference. The world has opinions about her choice, but opinions don't pay rent or keep her brother in college. Sarah closes the laptop, overwhelmed by the futility of job hunting when every search result reminds her how far she's fallen. The smell of her neighbor's dinner, something with garlic and onions, drifts through the walls, making her stomach growl with hunger she's been ignoring. She checks the refrigerator, wilted lettuce, expired milk, half a jar of peanut butter, and condiments that can't constitute a meal by themselves. Sarah makes a mental inventory of her resources. $347 in checking, maybe $50 in loose change scattered throughout the apartment, and a credit card with a $500 limit that she's never used. Enough to survive for perhaps 2 weeks if she's careful, longer if she's willing to eat nothing but peanut butter and ramen noodles. The apartment's single window overlooks Interstate 85, the same highway where she made the choice that changed everything. Cars flow in both directions like blood through arteries, carrying people toward jobs and homes and futures that don't hang in the balance of a single moral decision. Through the glass, she can see the approximate location where the accident occurred. Emergency crews cleared the wreckage within hours, traffic patterns resumed their normal flow, and the highway shows no sign that 12 lives were forever altered on that stretch of asphalt. The world moves on with brutal efficiency, erasing evidence of trauma almost as quickly as it occurs. Sarah's phone sits silent on the counter, powered off since her termination. The quiet amplifies her anxiety, making her hyper-aware of every sound. The refrigerator's hum, traffic noise from the street below, her own heartbeat that seems unnaturally loud in the compressed space. She considers calling David to explain what happened. But what would she say? That his tuition money evaporated because she chose to help strangers instead of following company policy. That his dreams of graduation might end because his sister couldn't ignore people who were dying? The choice felt right in the moment, driven by training and instinct that overrode rational calculation of consequences. Now, facing homelessness and her brother's destroyed future, doubt creeps in like cold air through window cracks. Who sacrifices everything for strangers? Who throws away financial security for people they'll never see again? The questions loop through her mind without finding satisfactory answers, each repetition making her decision feel more reckless and less heroic. Somewhere in Atlanta, the people she saved are recovering in hospital beds, their lives continuing because she chose conscience over policy. Their families are planning visits, their children are doing homework, their futures are intact because Sarah Martinez was willing to risk everything for a moment of human decency. But heroism doesn't pay rent, and moral courage doesn't cover tuition. Sarah sits in her shrinking apartment surrounded by the debris of unemployment, wondering if doing the right thing was worth losing everything she'd worked to build. The sun sets over Interstate 85, painting the horizon in shades of orange and purple that remind her of the emergency lights that flashed while she knelt beside broken cars, holding pressure on wounds that would have been fatal without immediate intervention. Tomorrow she'll start looking for work in earnest, swallowing pride and accepting whatever employment she can find. Tonight she sits in darkness, counting the cost of conscience and wondering whether angels ever second-guess their choices. Thursday morning, 9:15 a.m. exactly. The unknown number appears on Sarah's phone screen like a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. She's been staring at job listings for 2 hours, each posting more depressing than the last, when the phone vibrates against her coffee mug with an urgency that makes her jump. For the past 18 hours, she's ignored calls from reporters, job placement agencies, and a few crank callers who either love or hate what she did on Interstate 85. But something about this call feels different. The timing, perhaps, or the professional formatting of the number that suggests a law firm or corporate office. Hello? Miss Martinez? This is James Harrison from Harrison & Associates. I represent Marcus Chen of the Chen Foundation. Sarah's first instinct is suspicion. Another reporter with a creative approach, maybe, or someone wanting to exploit her viral fame for their own purposes. I'm not interested in interviews or... Mr. Chen would like to offer you a position as Director of Emergency Response for his humanitarian foundation, starting at $120,000 annually. The words don't compute. Sarah sits down hard on her couch, the springs creaking under sudden weight, and stares at her reflection in the blank television screen. People don't get job offers like this. Not people like her, not after being fired for policy violations, not when their primary qualification is a viral video. I'm sorry, what? The role involves coordinating disaster relief efforts worldwide, utilizing your logistics experience and medical background. Mr. Chen was deeply moved by your actions on Interstate 85 and believes your decision-making under pressure is exactly what the Foundation needs. Sarah's mouth moves without producing sound. Her mind races through possibilities, elaborate prank, mistaken identity, some kind of scam targeting people made vulnerable by sudden unemployment. But Harrison's voice carries the crisp professionalism of someone accustomed to discussing seven-figure budgets and international operations. I'll email you the formal contract within the hour, Harrison continues. Mr. Chen would like to meet this afternoon at the Marriott downtown, if you're available. Say, 2 o'clock? Her hands shake as she tries to process information that seems too good to be true. Yesterday, she was calculating how long her savings might last eating nothing but peanut butter. Now a stranger wants to pay her more than triple her old salary to help people professionally. This is real? Very real, Miss Martinez. Your quick thinking and willingness to sacrifice everything for strangers is exactly what the Foundation seeks in disaster zones around the world. People who can make life or death decisions without bureaucratic approval, who understand that human life takes precedence over institutional policy. The irony hits her like a physical blow. The same qualities that got her fired from TransGlobal are apparently what makes her valuable to the Chen Foundation. Corporate liability becomes humanitarian asset with a simple change of context. Yes, 2 o'clock. I'll be there. After hanging up, Sarah stares at her phone like it might transform into something else if she looks away. The contact information Harrison provided appears legitimate. A law firm with offices in 3 cities, professional website, client testimonials from recognizable nonprofit organizations. She Googles Marcus Chen Foundation and finds a professionally designed website detailing humanitarian work in 47 countries. Disaster relief, refugee assistance, emergency medical care in underserved communities. The staff page shows photos of people working in refugee camps, coordinating supply deliveries, providing medical training in remote villages. Marcus Chen's biography reads like a modern Horatio Alger story. Immigrated from Taiwan at age 12, worked his way through MIT studying computer science, built a logistics software company that revolutionized supply chain management, sold it for $2.3 billion at age 31. Instead of retiring to a private island, he established a foundation dedicated to getting aid to people who need it most. The position description makes Sarah's head spin. Director of Emergency Response will coordinate international relief efforts, manage field teams in disaster zones, oversee logistics for humanitarian missions, and develop emergency response protocols for underserved communities. Extensive travel required. Salary commensurate with experience and responsibility. She refreshes the page twice to make sure it's real, then forwards the link to her own email address as evidence that this conversation actually happened. The universe has a twisted sense of timing. 24 hours ago, she lost everything, and now a billionaire wants to hire her based on the same video that got her fired. Sarah showers for the first time since Tuesday, standing under hot water that feels like absolution. She puts on her best interview outfit, a navy blazer and skirt she bought 3 years ago for David's college orientation, still in good condition because she's had no reason to wear professional clothes since then. The face in her bathroom mirror looks different somehow. Still tired, still stressed about money and David's tuition. But something has shifted. Hope maybe, or just the possibility that yesterday's catastrophe might become tomorrow's opportunity. Her phone buzzes with an email from Harrison and Associates. The subject line reads, Employment Contract, Director of Emergency Response. Sarah opens the attachment with trembling fingers, scrolling through pages of benefits and responsibilities that seem too generous to be real. Health insurance, dental and vision, $120,000 annual salary with performance bonuses, housing allowance for international assignments, education benefits that would cover David's remaining tuition, travel expenses paid, company vehicle provided. The benefits package alone is worth more than she made in 2 years at TransGlobal. Sarah prints the contract at the library, reading every clause twice while trying to identify the catch that must be hidden somewhere in the legal language. But the document appears straightforward, a genuine offer from a legitimate organization, compensation that would transform her financial situation overnight. At 1:45 p.m., she stands outside the Marriott downtown, watching business people flow through revolving doors with the confidence of people who belong in places like this. The lobby gleams with marble and brass, intimidating in its understated luxury. Sarah tugs at her blazer, feeling underdressed among the designer suits and polished shoes. This morning she was unemployed and desperate. In 15 minutes, she'll sit across from a billionaire who wants to offer her a career she never could have imagined. The universe, it seems, has a sense of humor about timing. The Marriott's lobby smells like expensive cologne and fresh flowers, a different world from the warehouse where Sarah's day used to begin. Marble floors reflect crystal chandelier light, creating an atmosphere of wealth so pervasive it seems to emanate from the walls themselves. Business travelers in $1,000 suits check phones while waiting for elevators, their conversations peppered with references to international markets and seven-figure deals. Sarah approaches the concierge desk, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm meeting Marcus Chen. The Chen Foundation?" The concierge, a woman in her 50s with the kind of professional politeness that costs extra, checks her computer screen. "Miss Martinez? Mr. Chen is waiting in the executive lounge on the 32nd floor. Take the express elevator to your right." The elevator rises smoothly, carrying Sarah toward a meeting that will either validate her wildest hopes or expose them as desperate fantasies. The city shrinks through glass walls as she ascends, Atlanta's skyline spreading out like a circuit board of ambition and opportunity. Marcus Chen stands when she enters the lounge, hand extended in greeting. He's younger than she expected, maybe 34, with intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of understated confidence that comes from achieving impossible things before age 40. His handshake is firm but not aggressive, the grip of someone accustomed to making deals without needing to prove dominance. "Miss Martinez, thank you for coming." They settle into leather chairs that probably cost more than Sarah's monthly rent, positioned beside floor-to-ceiling windows that frame the city in expensive glass. Marcus orders coffee while Sarah tries to process sitting across from a billionaire who apparently wants to hire her based on a 2-minute viral video. "My grandmother owns Chen's flower shop on your old delivery route," he begins, stirring sugar into coffee that arrives in bone china cups. "She's mentioned you many times over the years, always speaks highly of your kindness, your reliability, the way you take time to talk with elderly customers who might not have other human contact during their day." The connection clicks into place like puzzle pieces finding their proper arrangement. Mrs. Chen, who always smiled and waved from her shop window, who sometimes offered Sarah bottles of water during summer heat waves, who probably watched her struggle with heavy packages and impossible schedules without ever knowing her grandson built a tech empire. "Logistics software made me wealthy," Marcus continues, his voice carrying the matter-of-fact tone of someone discussing obvious truths. "Getting the right resources to the right place at exactly the right time. Supply chain optimization, inventory management, distribution efficiency. My company revolutionized how businesses move products around the world." He pauses to sip coffee, studying Sarah's face as if reading her thoughts. But software only works when you have people who understand that behind every logistical challenge are human beings whose lives depend on making the right choices quickly. Your actions on Interstate 85 demonstrated something my algorithms can't quantify, the instinct to help regardless of personal cost. Marcus slides a leather folder across the small table between them. The contract inside outlines responsibilities Sarah never dreamed of having. Coordinating disaster relief in refugee camps, managing supply chains for humanitarian missions, building emergency response teams in communities abandoned by their governments. The position includes full medical training to update your expired certification, travel to 40 countries annually, and a budget of $2 million for your first year's initiatives. You'll work directly with UN agencies, coordinate with military logistics teams, and make decisions that affect thousands of lives. Sarah's hands shake as she flips through pages of benefits and responsibilities that read like someone else's resume. The salary alone, $120,000, would solve every financial problem that's kept her awake for 3 years. David's tuition, her rent, the crushing weight of choosing between groceries and gasoline. "Why me?" she whispers, the question emerging before rational thought can stop it. Marcus leans forward, his expression growing more intense. Because when it mattered most, you chose people over policy. You risked everything to help strangers, with no expectation of reward or recognition. That kind of moral courage is rare in any profession. In humanitarian work, it's essential. The leather chair seems to envelop Sarah as she processes the magnitude of this offer. 24 hours ago, she faced homelessness and her brother's destroyed future. Now this stranger offers her more than she ever dared dream, based on 2 minutes of video that showed her doing what felt like the only reasonable choice. There has to be more to this, she says, suspicious of generosity that seems too perfect to be real. People don't offer jobs like this based on viral videos. Marcus smiles, the first genuine expression she's seen from him since sitting down. My family immigrated from Taiwan with 2 suitcases and $47. We didn't speak English, didn't understand American customs, had no connections or resources. Strangers helped us. Teachers who stayed late to explain homework, neighbors who shared meals when my parents worked double shifts, people who chose kindness when they could have chosen indifference. He stands and walks to the window, looking out over the city where his success story unfolded. I built a company worth billions, but I never forgot that none of it would have been possible without ordinary people making extraordinary choices to help someone they barely knew. This is how I pay that debt forward. Sarah stares at the contract, trying to process numbers and responsibilities that seem to belong to someone else's life. The benefits package includes health insurance that would cover therapy for trauma she didn't know she was carrying, housing allowances that would let her move out of the studio apartment that feels more like a prison cell each day. "What's the catch?" she asks. "The work is dangerous. You'll operate in disaster zones where infrastructure has collapsed, governments have failed, and desperation makes people unpredictable. You'll make decisions with incomplete information under enormous pressure. Some of the people you try to help won't survive, despite your best efforts." Marcus returns to his chair, leaning forward with the intensity of someone who's seen humanitarian work up close. Last year, our teams responded to earthquakes in Turkey, floods in Bangladesh, refugee crises in 3 African countries, and hurricane damage in the Caribbean. We lost 2 volunteers to violence, 3 more to preventable diseases. The work saves lives, but it also costs them. Sarah thinks about Interstate 85, about kneeling beside broken cars while other people stood at safe distances recording video. Helping people has always come with risks, physical, emotional, professional. The only difference now is someone wants to pay her for taking those risks instead of firing her. How long do I have to decide? The contract is yours whenever you're ready to sign it. But we have a typhoon response deploying to the Philippines next week. If you want to start immediately, we can have you on a plane Sunday morning. Sunday. 4 days to transform from unemployed delivery driver to international humanitarian coordinator. The timeline seems impossibly compressed, but maybe that's how life works. Years of gradual change, punctuated by moments that redirect everything. Sarah looks out the window at Interstate 85, visible in the distance, the highway where she made a choice that seemed simple at the time. Help people who need help. Stop when stopping isn't safe. Choose conscience over policy. Now that choice has led her to a 32nd floor conference room where a billionaire wants to pay her more money than she's ever seen to make similar choices on a global scale. "I need to call my brother," she says finally. "He's in college, depends on me for tuition. This would change his life, too." "Of course. Take all the time you need." Marcus hands her a business card with contact information embossed in gold lettering. "My grandmother will be proud," he says. "She always believed you were destined for something special." The elevator descends smoothly, carrying Sarah back toward ground level and a future she's not sure she's qualified to handle. But qualification might be less important than willingness, the readiness to help when help is needed, regardless of personal cost. Her phone shows missed calls from David, probably wondering why she hasn't answered his texts about the scholarship interview. Sarah sits in her car in the Marriott's parking garage, staring at the contract that could change everything, trying to find the courage to believe that impossible things sometimes happen to ordinary people. The universe, it seems, has a sense of humor about timing, and justice, and second chances that arrive exactly when you need them most. 6 months later, the refugee camp in Jordan stretches beyond the horizon like a temporary city that's become permanent through necessity and abandonment. 40,000 people fleeing violence they didn't choose, carrying children and memories and hopes that weigh more than the few possessions they managed to salvage. Sarah stands on a supply truck's tailgate at dawn, checking inventory against her tablet, while her emergency response team prepares for another day of controlled chaos. The work exhausts her in ways she never expected and energizes her in ways she never imagined. 12-hour days in heat that turns clothing into furnaces, coordinating with government officials who speak 3 languages she's still learning, managing logistics for supplies that mean the difference between life and death for thousands of people. But exhaustion mixed with purpose feels fundamentally different from the bone-deep weariness of driving delivery routes with no end in sight. Here, every decision ripples outward in ways she can measure. Families fed, children vaccinated, emergency medical care that saves lives instead of just prolonging suffering. Sarah! Dr. Amara jogs toward the truck, her medical bag bouncing against her hip with each step. Amara Hassan studied medicine at Oxford before returning to Jordan to work with displaced populations, trading a comfortable London practice for refugee camps that test her skills in ways no textbook could prepare her for. The antibiotics arrived just in time, Amara calls, slightly breathless from running across uneven ground. We've got 17 children with respiratory infections who need immediate treatment. The dosage calculations are already prepared. Sarah checks her tablet, calculating distribution schedules against critical medical need. This is the mathematics that matter now, not rent and bills and David's tuition payments, but lives saved per supply dollar spent, medicine allocated per severity of condition, resources distributed according to triage protocols that prioritize the most vulnerable. The tablet shows current inventory: 2,400 units of amoxicillin, 800 units of azithromycin, emergency inhalers for 37 asthmatic children whose conditions are exacerbated by dust and stress. Enough medication to treat current needs with a small buffer for unexpected emergencies. Distribution starts in 20 minutes, Sarah tells Amara. We'll set up the medical station near the school tent, easier for families to find, and the teachers can help with translation. Her phone buzzes with a text from David. Graduation ceremony next month. Hope you can make it home for the weekend. The scholarship recipients want to thank you in person. You're officially famous at Georgia Tech. The scholarship fund was Sarah's first initiative after joining the Chen Foundation, established before she'd even received her first paycheck. Instead of restricting applications to children of first responders, she opened eligibility to anyone whose family member had sacrificed financial security to help others. Volunteers who couldn't afford to volunteer, people who chose service over salary, families who prioritized conscience over comfort. 47 students received full tuition assistance this year, their education funded by money that would have otherwise sat in Sarah's savings account, earning minimal interest. The scholarship recipients include the children of teachers in underfunded schools, volunteer firefighters who work second jobs to support their families, and social workers who could earn twice as much in corporate positions. Sarah climbs down from the truck, her boots hitting sand that's already absorbed the morning heat. The smell of cooking fires and diesel generators mingles with dust that gets into everything: clothes, hair, the spaces between teeth, every fold of fabric, and skin. After 6 months, she's learned to find the scent comforting rather than oppressive, a reminder that despite impossible circumstances, people continue creating homes and meals and moments of normalcy. A little girl approaches as Sarah arranges medical supplies, maybe 7 years old, clutching a drawing made with colored pencils worn down to nubs. The paper shows stick figures standing around a truck with "Thank you" written in careful English letters above a scene that captures the essence of humanitarian work better than any official report. Sarah kneels to eye level, accepting the gift with the reverence it deserves. "This is beautiful. What's your name?" "Layla," the girl whispers, then runs back to her family's tent before Sarah can respond, disappearing into the maze of temporary structures that house thousands of displaced lives. The drawing joins dozens of others in Sarah's quarters. Thank you notes from children who don't have toys, but create art from whatever materials they can find. Letters from parents grateful for medicine that saved their children's lives. Photographs of families reunited with relatives they thought they'd lost forever. Each piece represents a life touched, a future preserved, a reason to keep working when the heat and bureaucracy and endless need threaten to overwhelm resolve. Sarah's apartment at the compound measures barely more than her old studio in Atlanta, but the walls overflow with evidence that individual actions can create cascading positive change. Her satellite phone rings with its distinctive tone cutting through the morning sounds of camp life awakening. Marcus Chen's voice crackles through the connection from his San Francisco office, the time difference meaning he's probably working late while she starts another day. "How's the distribution going?" "Ahead of schedule. We'll have medical supplies to all family units by tonight, and Dr. Amara says the respiratory infections are responding well to treatment." "Excellent work. I have news about the next deployment. The Philippines typhoon relief needs someone with your experience managing complex logistics under pressure. Are you ready for another challenge?" Sarah looks across the camp, watching her team work with efficiency born from months of collaboration and crisis management. These people trust her judgment, depend on her coordination skills, follow her lead because she's proven reliable under pressure that would break most organizational structures. Dr. Amara supervises volunteers distributing medicine with the precision of a surgical procedure. Ahmed, her logistics coordinator, manages supply inventory with accuracy that would impress corporate accountants. Maria, the translator, helps families navigate bureaucratic requirements with patience that seems infinite despite impossible circumstances. A year ago, Sarah drove the same suburban route every day, delivering packages to people she barely knew, her life defined by routine so predictable she could perform it unconsciously. Now she coordinates international relief efforts, manages budgets that feed thousands, makes decisions that ripple across continents in ways she's still learning to comprehend. "Send me the briefing," she tells Marcus. "We'll be ready to deploy within 48 hours." After ending the call, Sarah walks through the camp as morning prayer calls echo from temporary mosques, the sound carrying across sand that absorbs voices and footsteps and dreams, deferred but not abandoned. The air begins its daily transformation from cool to scorching, bringing relief that will last perhaps another hour before heat makes movement exhausting. Children play soccer with a ball made from plastic bags and tape, their laughter carrying across makeshift streets named after destroyed cities they might never see again. Women hang laundry on lines, strung between tents, creating domestic routines that provide psychological anchoring in lives stripped of everything except hope and determination. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. Supply shortages complicated by political tensions, bureaucratic delays that cost lives, medical emergencies that require quick thinking and quicker action. But tonight, 40,000 people have food, water, medicine, and shelter because a network of dedicated individuals chose to help rather than look away. Sarah's phone buzzes with another text, this one from a number she doesn't recognize. "Saw your interview on CNN about the scholarship fund. My daughter was in the car accident you stopped for last year. She starts college next month, thanks to your foundation. Thank you for showing us what real courage looks like." She screenshots the message, adding it to a folder she keeps for difficult days when the work feels overwhelming and progress seems invisible. Evidence that individual choices matter, that breaking policy for the right reasons can redirect entire life trajectories in ways that compound across generations. The stars appear one by one in the vast desert sky, brilliant points of light unmarred by city pollution. Sarah sits on the camp's perimeter, her back against a supply crate, watching constellations emerge from darkness with the slow revelation of beauty that survives even in places defined by loss and displacement. Her phone shows 17 missed calls from reporters wanting updates on the Foundation's work, 3 interview requests from magazines profiling modern humanitarian efforts, and 2 documentary filmmakers seeking access for projects about Americans working in international crisis zones. She deletes them all without reading the details. The real story isn't about viral videos or billionaire benefactors or career transformations that happen in 24-hour spans. It's not about social media fame or inspirational narratives that reduce complex human experiences to digestible entertainment. The real story is about the moment when conscience overpowers self-preservation, when helping strangers becomes more important than personal security, when ordinary people choose to risk everything for principles that can't be quantified in performance reviews or quarterly reports. It's about the little girl named Layla who drew stick figures around a supply truck because someone chose to stop when stopping wasn't safe, policy wasn't clear, and consequences couldn't be calculated in advance. It's about 47 scholarship recipients who will graduate college without crushing debt because someone understood how financial sacrifice could cascade into generational change, creating opportunities that spread like ripples across families and communities. It's about the truth Sarah learned on Interstate 85 and has relearned in refugee camps across 3 continents. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find your purpose, and sometimes purpose finds you in the exact moment when everything else falls apart. The camp settles into evening quiet, broken only by generator hums and distant conversations in languages Sarah is slowly learning to understand. Children practice English with volunteers, families share meals cooked over propane burners, and somewhere in the medical tent, Dr. Amara checks on patients whose lives were saved by antibiotics, delivered just in time. Sarah closes her eyes, breathing deeply of air that tastes like sand and possibility, and the kind of hope that survives impossible circumstances. Tomorrow she'll coordinate another distribution, solve another logistics puzzle that determines whether families eat or go hungry, make another decision that affects thousands of lives in ways she's still learning to comprehend. But tonight, she simply sits under stars that shine the same light on refugee camps and suburban delivery routes, on corporate boardrooms and highway accidents, on every moment when ordinary people choose between safety and service, between policy and conscience, between the life they're living and the life they might be capable of creating. The choice always exists. Most people just don't recognize it until the moment arrives with the force of physics and the weight of moral obligation. Sarah learned to recognize it on a Tuesday afternoon when physics and conscience collided on 6 lanes of asphalt, creating a moment of decision that would redirect everything that followed. The viral video that cost her 1 job became the foundation for a career she never could have imagined, proving that consequences and rewards don't always arrive in expected proportions. Her satellite phone buzzes with another message, this one from Marcus. The board approved your proposal for the Emergency Response Training Center. Construction begins next month in 3 cities. You're changing how the world responds to disasters. Sarah smiles, watching meteors streak across the desert sky with the brilliance of stars burning out in flashes that travel millions of miles to illuminate a refugee camp where tomorrow she'll save more lives, coordinate more aid, make more decisions that prove individual actions can create change that ripples across continents. Some fires burn brightest just before they transform into something else entirely. Some choices that feel small in the moment turn out to be the ones that redirect everything that follows. And sometimes the universe has perfect timing for second chances that arrive exactly when you need them most, exactly 24 hours after you lose everything you thought you couldn't live without.